I was on Twitch. I mean, I was on Kick. I was trying to look up. What was I trying to look up? Somebody had sent me a text, but then as soon as I got on, the stream was already over. So I'm thinking they was like taking out the stream or whatever. I don't know. I'm gonna load my phone and my everything else up. I got the Kick app on my second phone, so I might try to see if I can get on there. You let me know right now that I'm live on Twitch. I like that. I still. Sorry. Am I still on Kick? What's going on? Oh, it switched over. Okay. It just now switched over. Let me turn my volume down my phone. That thing is loud. Well, not loud, but I can hear it. So, that's why I consider it loud. If I can hear it, it's loud. Anyways, Breaking Marvel cancels She-Hulk. Let's see what they talking about in this one. Do I? It's only gonna be the
Did
fifth
Marvel
video
Studios
to be
just
glitched,
cancel
but the last video
She-Hulk?
for Kick.
Well, yes and no. She-Hulk Season 2 is very unlikely now, as the actress who plays She-Hulk / Jennifer Walters, Tatiana Maslany, has said that Disney has basically said, no, we're not going to make that, which has everybody going, Disney canceled She-Hulk. But there is actually a lot more to this story than people know about, so we'll give you all of the details on what is happening, but one thing is for sure. Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney right now, is changing things at Marvel Studios. And not just Marvel, but Disney in general. So there are some big changes coming and some big changes that have already happened. But we'll break down the entire story in this video. And if you're new and you love Marvel and want to stay up to date on the MCU, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest news. And if you subscribe and leave a comment, you're automatically entered in our giveaway for a chance to win an Xbox Series X, a PS5, some Marvel Legends items, and some DC items as well. The winner picks one item and we pick one winner at the end of every month. So this is one part of the story that you might have heard about already. Like I said, there is another part to the story that a lot of people aren't talking about, which we'll get to in just a minute. But She-Hulk star Tatiana Maslany was on a Twitch game show, and she was asked if she thought She-Hulk Attorney at Law would be returning for a second season, in which she answered, I don't think so. I think we blew our budget. And Disney was like, no thanks. Now, what's really interesting here is that reportedly the costs of each episode were around $25 million. That is a lot. According to Variety, each episode cost about $25 million, which is more than an episode of Game of Thrones or The Mandalorian. So with a budget this big, that means that Disney and Marvel put a lot of faith in this show, and it really didn't pay off. And what's really confusing is that some of the CGI in She-Hulk was terrible. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who
everyone I've invited here could be responsible for murder.
Did you know LA Times called her Jin?
Who really enjoyed this series, but even they can admit that at some points the CGI is just awful, which is insane considering each episode had a $25 million budget, or very close to it. Now, for those who didn't hear about this, the way they did She-Hulk was very messy. And the reason that it was so messy is because the episodes weren't entirely complete. The season wasn't entirely complete before they began filming and editing, which sounds crazy, but that is what was reported in the past. In fact, the very first episode where She-Hulk gets her powers, becomes She-Hulk, gets in the car accident with Bruce Banner, her cousin, that was originally supposed to be in the last episode. So they had already shot many episodes before they decided, hey, we need to make this in the first episode. We can't have her origin be a part of the final episode. You need to change it. You need to do a rewrite and make it a part of the first episode, and we need to film it. So that just kind of screwed a lot of things up with the writers and with the production. And of course, this was pretty late in the process, and the release date for She-Hulk was coming up soon, so the VFX artists were really put on a time crunch there, which explains why even though the budget is so big for each episode, there were still problems with the VFX because it was really, really messy and the artists were really rushed due to a lot of shifts. I did a whole video talking about how if Marvel Studios would just commit to writing entire movies or shows before they begin production, it would solve a lot of their quality issue problems. And this is just a perfect example of that. But as I mentioned, there is more to this situation to understand. IO9 of Gizmodo reached out to Disney to ask what's going on. They have yet to officially hear back from Disney, but they do say that some sources to them told them what was kind of happening. And their sources confirmed that Manslani's comments are basically accurate, just lacking some context. And the context is that CEO Bob Iger, when he returned to Disney and changed much of Marvel's direction, everything was reevaluated. They go on to state that we see some of that fallout in the handling of Daredevil Born Again, Captain America New World Order, and the upcoming Avengers movie. So while Marvel works everything out, it's not that a second season of She-Hulk has been completely abandoned. It just seems less likely at the moment, in which they do state, yes, is partly due to its massive budget. And even if the second season did happen, there would have to be major changes in terms of the visual effects, making the show more cost effective. And that is the problem right there. Basically, they would have to cut the cost of the visual effects, and the visual effects were already pretty bad for She-Hulk. And it's not that She-Hulk was a completely terrible series, but a lot of people really just didn't care about it. Even if they watched it and enjoyed it, they've expressed that they would not watch it again. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people out there who do like it, and I'm really happy for those people. And the show did get mostly good reviews. However, it didn't really do much for Marvel. It didn't really make the money that they thought it was going to make to cover the massive budget that it had. And right now, recently, Bob Iger has kind of been addressing all of the claims that Disney is very woke right now. And this is something that is majorly affecting She-Hulk. She-Hulk had a lot of messaging behind it. And a few months ago, during the Times DealBook Summit in New York City on November 29th of 2023, Bob Iger basically said that he's not going to tolerate his company's partners and creative team prioritizing messaging over storytelling. He stated, and I quote, "Creators lost sight of what their number one objective needed to be. We have to entertain first. It's not about messages," end quote. But then he went on to say this as well. "We have entertained with values and with having a positive impact on the world in many different ways. Black Panther is a great example of that. I like being able to entertain if you can infuse it with positive messages and have a good impact on the world. Fantastic, but that should not be the objective. When I came back, what I really have tried to do is return to our roots." And he finished off by stating, "I've worked hard since I've been back to reminding the creative community who are our partners and our employees that that's the objective, and I don't really want to tolerate the opposite." Which again, he is talking about storytelling over messaging and agenda pushing. And really this is about a bigger story than just She-Hulk and Marvel Studios. It's really about Bob Iger and his direction for Disney. And there's no doubt that Disney hasn't exactly been at its peak in the last few years. And shareholders of Disney are concerned. And of course they are looking at Bob Iger going, "We brought you back to fix things. What are you going to do?" And Bob Iger has basically decided that they are going to produce less Disney Plus content. When Disney Plus first came out, they were just producing content so often, it was a lot. It cost Disney a lot of money and didn't always pay off. So Bob Iger and Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige both confirmed separately that they are going to scale back a bit, producing less Disney Plus shows and spacing them further out. This would give their teams enough time to work on the shows and make sure that they are good and they are actually of quality. And now Bob Iger is basically stating that he's making all of their partners that produce content focus now on storytelling rather than agenda pushing or messaging, which I do think would be the solution to a few of their problems. There's nothing wrong with a good positive message, but you have to have a good story behind it. That's what people watch movies and shows for, to be entertained with a good story. And I've read a lot of the comments, I've read a lot of people state that they watch movies and shows for escapism and they don't want a message shoved down their throat very obviously. They want to escape, they want to have a fun time and be entertained. And that's really what Bob Iger is getting at here. So due to the fact that She-Hulk had a massive budget and didn't particularly do anything both for Disney and the MCU, that makes it unlikely to get a second season. But with Bob Iger now focused on storytelling over messaging, I think if they kept that in mind for She-Hulk Season 2 might have a shot at being better than Season 1. I actually love Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, in the comics. I think she was great, but I don't think that reflected in the show at all. But it does seem like Bob Iger really is kind of trying to keep to his word by making a bunch of changes. Now, the writer's strike didn't help either, but of course, we do know that Captain America Brave New World has been pushed back, and they did a lot of reshoots for it. Also, Daredevil Born Again has been completely scrapped. They're basically starting over from scratch with that entire story. And of course, there is a lot going on with the upcoming Avengers film. A lot of things contribute to this, but it is undergoing some massive changes right now. And I gotta commend them for doing this because they basically looked at what they had already, evaluated it, and decided that they wanted to change it, even if that meant having to delay it a little bit, which of course does cost them money. So I'm really glad they decided to do this. Overall, I think if they produce better content, of course it will make them more money, which is really what they want. But go ahead and let me know what you think about all of this in the comments down below. The possibility and probability that there is not going to be a She-Hulk Season 2. This does not mean that she won't show up in other projects, but her own Season 2 for her own series is probably not likely. Also, let me know what you think about what Bob Iger has said recently and the changes that he is trying to make right now at Disney, which in turn is also at Marvel Studios and Lucasfilm. Leave all your thoughts about that in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter as well if you'd like. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.
Woof. Think